writing, especially writing effective thesis, various techniques of writing effective thesis. This is a wonderful journey that once in a while everybody undergoes, and research is something that is we are born with. So what is research exactly? Let's understand that first, and then we'll move on to research writing, various techniques of writing thesis. So research is something seeing what everybody else has seen. Okay. But thinking what nobody else have thought. This is a definition of research. Research is seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking what nobody else have thought. So what is research exactly? Research is something, as the word suggests itself, searching something again with a different perspective. And in order to add on or contribute something more in the existing stream of the knowledge. Understand, this word is very important when we think about a research or from research perspective, that adding on into the existing stream. So we always are expected as a researcher to add on something to the existing data of the knowledge. At the same time, that add-on has to be of some very prominent importance. Only then your work will be counted. Otherwise, it will just be called as a summary. If you just refer others' works, or if you redo something that others have done and replicate the same thing without any contribution, then it can't be called as research. Please underline this very important thing at the beginning itself. Now let us understand various academic perspectives of what is thesis or what is a dissertation. Now thesis or dissertation is a lengthy piece of writing, academic writing, based on the original research done by the researcher and submitted as a part of the fulfillment to your bachelor's degree, master's degree, or doctoral degree. Rather MPhil or PhD. Now MPhil is no more in existence, so doctoral degree. The structure of the thesis varies depending on your field, your stream of specialization, and the department in which you are conducting your research. But it is typically divided into 4 to 5 chapters as common. And some of the parts are very common, and those we are going to discuss today. At the same time, the way of conducting research, how you carry on your research further, how you must lead your research, what are the etiquettes, what are the ethical practices, at the same time, what are the various norms of writing research paper or even dissertation or thesis. These are some common practices that we are going to talk about. Because ultimately, the fundamental of the thesis writing is investigating a research problem from a scientific perspective in order to identify some prominent or some workable solution for it, in order to investigate a problem, to find out some solution and resolve that issue. That's the major intention of the research. Though you belong to the stream of humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, or any other stream, the research work ultimately leads on to the common aim. That is, the ultimate goal of research is reaching to the conclusions, reaching to the findings, reaching to the solutions, or reaching ultimately to the contributions. So these are some varieties that we will discuss first. For example, in humanities, thesis writing is like a long form of essay, developing an overall sense of argument revolving around the central idea itself. The chapters are organized around diverse case studies and themes in humanities, basically. Yet, there are some fieldwork related research also in humanities, which can be called as empirical research, for which the data is already in existence, data is already available on field, and you can go and investigate more into it. For example, in the subjects like sciences or social sciences, the thesis is going to feature all the components that we are going to discuss further in the several slides. And in certain cases, they are dealt in the separate chapter, while in others, we require to combine them as per the requirement. For example, in specific types of qualitative research, in social sciences, the discussion as well as research section is woven together. But in scientific or science discipline or in some other disciplines, they are dealt separately. I mean, research section has a separate chapter and discussion section has a separate chapter altogether. So research section can be called as findings or conclusions or oral argument, So these are certain kind of categories into which your chapter may follow. Let us make it little simple and understand how the research work in the thesis flow. So these are some basic things in which we do write this long piece of essay. First comes introduction of your topic, which is followed by literature review. Under the literature review, you are supposed to investigate thoroughly the existing scholarly articles, lecture series, books, thereafter works done by the previous scholars on the same topic that you have chosen, in order to understand how those works are relevant to your work and what are the research gaps. So you can work on those research gaps. So when you are going to work on those research gaps, you are going to contribute. Understand? Something that the previous persons have not done, you are going to do it now. You are going to contribute in that sense. And that's why literature review is highly important. At the same time, literature review also helps us to set a theoretical base, theoretical background to our research work. Then comes methodology. Everybody has to select some research techniques and research methodologies to conduct your research. For example, let's say qualitative method or quantitative method of study. Now, qualitative deals with more of discourse analysis, data, more of descriptive works, and you have to analyze those, applying some parameters to that, leading to the conclusions. When we talk about quantitative analysis, it deals with the quantity, that is numbers. So when you are dealing with the digits or the data which is in numbers, for example, the survey reports or graphological information or information given in various reports in the parts of table or charts where numbers are included, if your research deals with that, then it will be called as the quantitative research. So in this way, you can use various methodologies for the explanation of your work. So it is highly important to identify the methodology of your research work before you continue or conduct your research. Then comes research section, discussion, followed by conclusion. These are some general parameters. We are going to discuss all of these in detail in the further slide. So these are certain steps which are common in all the disciplines. Okay. Whatever stream you are from, whatever department in which you are conducting your research, whatever topic you are conducting research on, these are certain parameters which we are going to follow as common when we are a research student or writing a thesis. For example, step number 1 involves choosing your research topic carefully. Now highlight this word carefully here. Carefully means there are certain things which you have to consider before you finalize your title or finalize your topic of research or the broader category of your research. For example, if you think that I want to conduct a research on the population growth, this is a way too generalized topic. When you say population growth, means the population growth in the whole world. The whole world consists of n number of countries. N number of countries consist of n number of states, including more people. And then when you are talking about population growth, you have not defined any particular years or any particular decade or any particular era in which you would like to do a research on. So this is very vague topic. This topic is going to lead you nowhere, and that is going to be very broad for your research. And then ultimately you will lead to no conclusions. That's why you always have to cut your research into small chunks. You have to narrow down your topic so it comes in your capacity. So you have to choose something that is in your capacity. So for that, you have to narrow down your topic, which should be able to fit into the time frame given for your research. So it is very important, first thing, that your topic has to be very important or helpful for the wider academic community. Your topic should not be beneficial only to some small number of people or so a small particular one community in general. It has to be helpful to multiple people. Many people should get benefited by your work. The upcoming research scholar, the existing people or existing scholars, the whole academia in general should be benefited by your work. So you have to take certain topic which should be highly beneficial to the large number of people. So this is one criteria you have to keep in mind when you are framing your title or finalizing your topic. Second point comes, this is an opportunity to showcase your ideas or display your thoughts here. So understand it is your work. So your thought process has to be very clear. You should know what you want from your research, what you want to do, and how you are going to perform, how you are going to conduct your research, and to which conclusions are you going to lead. What should be your path in next 2 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, whatever number of years you are going to invest in your research work. So you should be able to have a clarity on this. Then very important factor here is achievable timeline. That's what I'm telling. For example, the ideal research submission is from minimum 3 years to 5 years, maximum 5 years, with extension 1 or 2 years more, like 6 years or 7 years. But ideally, it is expected by any standard research committee that the research scholar should submit the thesis within 3 to 5 years since they enroll in their since they get confirmation of their admission in their research. At the same time, you should also have to mind one thing, that you should keep your research consistent and keep submitting the 6 monthly progress report according to the standard norms of the research department in your respective university. So understand, if your research is very wide, which is gonna take a long time, like some 10 years or so, then you can't cut it into, or you can't call it as a thesis writing. It has to be something else. It should be some larger project that you should aim at. Your thesis has time limitation. Understand? So you have to narrow down your topic in such a way which should be beneficial, first thing, to the larger community. Second thing, it should be in your capacity. For example, I might be busy in my job, so I don't get enough time to go on the field and conduct research. It becomes very difficult for me to collect the data from the on-field structures altogether. So what I will do, I will better rely more on ready-made or existing works, like existing data. For example, government reports. For example, let's say I'm again doing research on population growth in Pune. In last 10 years. This is what I have chosen. Last 10 years, like 2014 to 2024. This is my overall consideration. Now, this is also going to be little broader because Pune is also a very huge division, under which comes a lot of other sub divisions and many villages and many things. The population is also very huge as it is a metropolitan city. So again, I have to narrow down the topic to certain particular region or certain particular area, like Eastern Pune, Western Pune, or even if I think about Pune division, I must say Pune city in general. Okay. Then if I think like that, then I have two possibilities. First thing, I have to better go for this, conduct my research through the survey method, that I must go and visit the field go on field, visit people, and visit various wards, okay, and just check out how was the population before 10 years and how it has grown every year. And I have to note down everything by going on field. I have to visit various municipal offices, corporate offices. I have to take the data from all possible government offices which are included into the population growth related data. For example, even including the election committee, because they also conduct this population survey. So I have to visit all these people to get the hands-on data, ready data for me. Now, if I am working, I am in job, then it's very difficult for me to go there. I can either go on the weekends or I have to go at the evening. But by evening, again, the offices are closing. So I can visit the offices, right? So what I can do is I can use the second way of conducting my research, that is library research. So library research includes the existing data seeking out from the ready-made resources available in the book forms. For example, let's say I may take it from government websites, some reports, or I may read some works done by my previous scholars based on the same topic in which they had talked about some population and something. I may also visit some offices and election offices, let's say, or population survey ministry, from where I can get the data directly, and then I can start analyzing that data at my own comfort, at my home or on my PC. Right. So these are two possible ways. So you first have to identify what are your capacities, what are your possibilities, and according to that, you can frame your research. These are some prerequisite things you have to decide before you finalize your topic. Understand. Then second step that goes is examine what is expected. So every university does have their own standard norms, and they do give you handbooks once your admission is confirmed. So you should always make sure that you undergo a thorough investigation, a thorough reading and understanding of those handbooks, abide by all the protocols, ethical protocols told by that particular university in the form of those handbooks. So you can always make sure that your work is going through some ethical practices, legal practices. You are not involved in any kind of unethical things like plagiarism. So you have to abide by that. Another thing is referencing style. Every stream, every discipline does have recommendation of various style sheets of research writing. For example, MLA, APA, OSCOLA, Chicago. These are certain style sheets in which you should write your research work. So, for example, at the end of your research writing, you have to add on bibliography. So there is a particular way of how you should mention the names of author, thereafter the author's work, publisher, place of publication, page numbers. So there is a systematic way of writing it, and you have to follow one particular uniform referencing style recommended by your university. Now here, what can you do? Another thing, if you don't get any handbook, let's say, or no fixed kind of structures written for ethical protocols or referencing style, then what you can do is you can refer to the works done by your previous researchers. Not only one, several I am saying. Only then you can observe some commonalities and note those down in your diary. So you are going to follow that and replicate the same in your research work. At the same time, every research scholar who is going to conduct research through PhD will undergo coursework. So that coursework is definitely going to help you out to learn all these important parameters like referencing style, which you are going to incorporate in all your works altogether. Now, at the same time, the structure of the research may vary according to your discipline. For example, in some science researches, natural sciences, something, if you have conducted research in the laboratory, use some chemicals or something, then you have to add on the list of the chemicals, some reports, some photographs. If your research involves the questionnaire, survey-based method, then you have written, if you have handwritten questionnaire forms filled by your, subject samples, collected samples, then you may have to add those on the printed copy of the Google form or the hard copies of your written questionnaire. So these are certain things, depends on, that comes under appendices anyways, but according to your stream, they may give you certain different recommendations. But ultimately, there are some common points which are common in all disciplines, like cutting your main research work into 5 chapters. First comes your kind of replication of synopsis altogether, which will have aims and objectives, problem statement or hypothesis, at the same time scope for your research, methodology of your research, and how you are planning your research. In you have to give chapterization and so on, the introduction of it. The second chapter goes in theoretical background. So under theoretical background, you have to talk about all the literature review. At the same time, what are the research techniques or tools those you are going to employ in your research. This will be included into the second chapter, where you will talk about the theory in detail. Third, fourth chapter may go for your analysis of the data, and the final chapter, that is concluding chapter 5, will have your overall discussions on the results you have found or the observations you have done. So in the finding section, it can be called as finding and results. It can also be called results in certain cases, in which you will have all the findings, scope for further research, pedagogical implications, how your research work is useful for the larger academic community. At the same time, you are also going to add on bibliography, referencing, and conclusion in the last chapter. So these are some common things which we observe throughout the all researches. Then what type of source material are you going to use? You have to just identify that. Are you going to rely on data that is already in existence on various platforms like libraries, e-libraries, that is digital libraries, or on some government website in the form of reports or anything else? So you have to identify that. Or are you going to work on field and conduct your research fresh from the scratch? You have to identify the source material, and then you can plan your research. What forms of analysis are perceived to be appropriate? You have to check it out. For example, in certain cases, let's say in humanities, if you are going to conduct a discourse analysis, then you have to apply some theory to it, some base to it, and then you have to do the analysis. If it is in some numerical form, then you have to apply certain formulas, and then you have to conduct a research, and then you have to analyze your data, that is in quantitative form. So you have to understand what are the requirements. So it is highly essential to thoroughly study various methodologies, various tools and techniques of research, various forms of data analysis before you start doing research. So it will be very easy, very helpful for you to identify what are the best sources possible for you. Step 3 is have a clear goal and structure. You should always have a clear mindset before you start your work. You should know what is your ultimate aim and how are you going to lead. For example, in next 5 years, how should be my plan? What am I going to do in the year first? What happens in first year? Most of you are involved in coursework, right? For 6 months in certain universities, for 1 year, something like that. And then you wait to finish your coursework, and then you go and start your doing research. Don't do that. Start identifying various topics, various possibilities before. In fact, you also have to give synopsis also, or proposal, research proposal for in the interview round, right? Some people who are not NetSet qualified, they have to give paid examinations, and they have to qualify paid written exam. Then second round is interview, and in interview the panel asks you some questions. It is always better to go with your research topic and research proposal, so they will become very happy to see that your academic rigor, your research rigor, how are you well aware about what are the requirements of research. At the same time, it is also going to help them also out to understand what is your depth, what is your target ultimately. So they will guide you if you are going in the correct direction, if your work topic is enough to conduct a thesis on it, or what are the changes required, how should be your direction, how should be your itinerary for next few years. These all things they guide you during this round, and they also allow you guide according to your field of specialization, right? So these are certain things which are highly important in this particular stage. Now you should have a goal here and make the structure plan ready, tentative though. So proposal outline, craft carefully in the interview. That is going to be helpful in the interview section. And it will also going to be replicated in the chapter 1 also, because many things are going to reflect in chapter 1, because you're already going to talk about aims and objectives, problem statement, methodologies of investigation, and so on. Then you have to read a lot and conduct a thorough research for the data collection. When you are doing a data collection, do not bound yourself or limit yourself. Just let it flow as you go. So make a note of every resource that you are citing. For example, you open a website to read some article, note down all the details of that website. So next time, whenever you want to refer that article, you can go back to that link. At the same time, if you are referring some information from that article in your thesis, then in your bibliography, you have to give reference to that proper article. Otherwise, it will be caught under plagiarism. So to avoid that, you have to make sure that every detail in your research, every source that you have used for your research should be cited properly in your references, in your bibliography. So what you can do is, you can create a separate notebook for your thesis. At the same time, create different Word documents, Google documents, so you can start working from anywhere, any place. So it's always better. Even in case something gets deleted, you can recover that. That's a facility given by Google Doc. Um, and so if you are, let's say, working on Google document, then you can make a folder of PhD thesis, under which you can create separate columns like data collection, separate subfolders like data collection, under which will come different documents. Then you can create separate folders like chapter 1, chapter 2, or analysis and discussion, results, findings. These are some things you can parallelly start doing. At the same time, let's say I have started doing data collection from day one for setting my theoretical background, for my literature review, let's say. You have to start writing summary of every article that you are reading. Though you use it in your work later on or not, it's okay. At this step, you should never limit yourself. Like, I have to do only 25 literature reviews. You should not limit like this, because you never know, 10 articles I have read altogether, but they are not contributing much into my work. So might possible that I have to read another 20 or 30. So you should never restrict yourself. So you can always, whatever you are reading, summarize it. At the same time, write down the whole source of information in the style sheet, referencing style sheet that is recommended for you. So write all the details of it. So later on, when you are going to write your chapters, like second chapter or literature review, you can select or filter the data from it. So you should always have abundant data, and there should not be any scarcity of data. You can always filter it out. May possible that you are going to use only 30% of it or 40% of it, but that's okay. This is how the research is conducted. So always remember that you have to go with the flow, and while reading itself from day one, you have to start writing. For example, you have to start writing summary and citing all the resources. Then you have to, after doing this data collection, you have to plan now your data. You have to filter your data. What are the things you are going to add on into your research? Then you can give a sequencing to it. This will come first. This will go in chapter 1. This will go in chapter 2. I will talk about this one. I'll use this as my theoretical background or my methodology. I can take this reference to cite something particular. So in this way, you can plan your data then. This is what comes under structuring and restructuring. Even once you have structured your thesis, you have written all chapters, you have analyzed data, doesn't matter. It's not finalized at that stage. There are going to a lot of occasions when you have to reframe your data. You have to restructure it. At the same time, you have to reframe it also. Or sometimes you have to delete the whole section and you have to write new. These are some possibilities, and that is very normal in research writing. Do not get discouraged by this. It may happen that many times you will feel that whatever I have written is not impressive, is not convincing me. It's okay, and you feel like scrapping it out completely. That's very okay. You can take a small break and you can start working on it fresh. This is how the research is conducted. It's very normal. But once you get a flow, once you get a link, it will go with a great speed. For that, what is more important? Reading and doing a thorough research. If understand your write-up is not satisfactory, it means you are not reading enough. If you read enough, then it is going to give you a very vivid direction of how will you conduct your research altogether. Then comes drafting and proofreading. So once you have done with your research, finalize your writing, it's not a final copy. So you have to go through the whole draft once again and proofreading. Now, while proofreading, you have to do several proofreadings. For example, ongoing proofreading. The moment you finalize one unit or one chapters, proofread for grammars, then content related error. Okay, so these are two major things you have to check for. You can give it to your friend, your peer who is also from that stream or subject to understand if you are writing in a correct way or not. Then you have to give to your PhD guide, research supervisor for proofreading. Your supervisor will also give you some suggestions if something is going wrong. At the same time, this drafting or reading also involves one important step. That is, you can take the help of the language expert. Whatever language thesis you are writing in, you have to make sure that you should get it proofread by that person. If it is in English, then get help of some English expert. If it is in Hindi, Marathi, or Telugu, Tamil, get help of that expert. So in this way, you have to make sure that it should be error-free, grammatically and contextually both. Then comes important step, that is step number 4, that is write as you go. Aim for a suitable target. It should be in your capacity, first thing. Check that you have addressed everything. Once you have done with your whole writing, from start to end, you have to check out if you have addressed everything that was in plan. At the same time, you can refer to your notebook where you have made the notes to check out if you have mentioned everything. So you can start giving a tick to it, which you have mentioned. If something is left and which you feel is very important to be addressed in your thesis, you can find a suitable place and reframe it and properly fit it in your write-up. At the same time, as I told you, from day one itself, start writing, because you should not wait for like, I'll read everything first, then I'll start writing, then I'll start drafting, and then I'll go for proofreading. It doesn't happen like that. Many times things happen parallelly. For example, analysis section, okay, where you are analyzing the data, and the finding section happens parallelly, because while analyzing data itself, you are getting some findings. You can start making a note of those findings in the last section altogether, in the last chapter. So ultimately, your finding section will also start taking shape. At the same time, you can again go back to your last chapter and read from the top to bottom to find out or sequence it in a proper way. If you feel like adding on into something more, you can add on into it. So in this way, your writing has to be. Always make sure to keep on taking frequent backups and research notes. You have to keep your research work on multiple platforms, right? In the written platform, whenever possible, you can even take printouts and keep copies of it. It's okay. There going to be a heap of unnecessary printouts at the end of your submission. Many things you are not going to use or going to be in scrap because those were like rough copies or something. It's perfectly fine. You can either go for two-sided printouts, because unless and until you take print, many times it happens that mistakes are not visible on online copy. So you have to always make sure that your whole thesis has to be printed 2-3 times. So chapter wise, when you're finishing chapters, at the end a rough copy of it, so you can go through word to word, page to page, from beginning till the end, to find out if there is some mistake, and then you can correct those things and take a fair rough copy of it and send it to your supervisor. So supervisor will also give comments if needed. At the same time, you can start, if you're working on Google Doc, frequently start downloading PDF copies of it or Word copies of it. Send it on your email. If you have multiple email IDs, then send it on your multiple email IDs, or keep a copy to your friend also. So in case of emergency, your friend will have a backup of it. So you have to keep it in the pen drive or hard disk. So in this way, you can keep multiple backups. Then keeping a track. You should always keep a track of your work. You can make a timeline, paste it on the wall of your house, and then you can in your room, and then you can check if you are going according to the timeline or not. Then that is going to give you a kind of achievement that you are having into the stipulated time frame. If you are not pursuing, then it is also going to push you ahead, motivate you that you have limited time frame and you have to cover so many things. So you can then cut it into small chunks and then you can plan for it. Always work on small parts so it becomes achievable. If you think thesis as a one piece, then it will be very hectic for you because it's a huge piece of around 300 pages. If you think about thesis as a whole, then that's going to create a burden for you. So always think like I have to go for chapter one, in which I'm going to talk about my research problem, my aim and objective, my methodologies, scope and limitation. So I'm going to deal with this right now. Then in second chapter, I'm going to deal with literature review. I'm just reading, finding out some theoretical basis for my work, and so on. I'm going to enjoy reading others' work and going to identify the research gaps so I can justify it in my work. So this should be your small targets, and then only it becomes achievable. Fourth important step is continue to question. Maintain a questioning and critical mindset. Whatever you are writing, ask a question if it is going in a correct way or not. Is it convincing you? How strongly are you convinced is very important. If you are able to convince yourself, if your write-up is convincing you, then only you are going to convince others. If you are in the doubt of whatever you are writing, then definitely it's not going to create any kind of impact on others' mindset. Explain your reasoning, forming a strong argument. Always make sure every statement that you are making in your research work has to have a very strong backup. For example, whatever argument you are making, like the population in Pune has drastically grown in last 2 years due to these reasons, like employment, migration, or some other kind of facilities, or being a metropolitan, something like this. I have given reasons. So this my statement is not random. When I'm saying due to employment, I have to give a proper proof backup from the concrete government reports, which talks about how people are migrating in Pune, being a metropolitan city, only for the employment. And what are the reasons behind it? Because the place where they belong to, the native places, they do have scarcity of livelihood or scarcity of jobs or employment, which is available in the bigger cities, because bigger cities are like the food chain. They always create a food for the next. They have every population, the crowd that is there has certain needs. To serve those certain needs, there comes another crowd. That another crowd has another needs. For example, the bourgeoisie or high class societies, they need uh, house help, right? So that house help comes from some middle class or some other states or some other strata of the society, and they have some financial needs, or some they to serve those financial needs comes another crowd, or they may have food related or shelter related needs, and there comes in picture the builders or the property sellers or something like that. So in this way, everybody is a grocery shop, so everybody's need is creating demand for a different kind of crowd, and that is why it's pulling the crowd, right? So I have to found out these reasons, but I can't randomly write it in my thesis unless and until I can prove it. How can I prove it? I have to show various reports. How was the population in 2016, and then how it grew suddenly in 2017. For example, during lockdown, there was a very less population suddenly because people uh, who were unemployed, who were in the lower strata of the society, who were more daily wages, let's say, had to leave the city because livelihood was not affordable here in Pune, as it's very expensive. They didn't have homes, they didn't have food arrangements, so they had to go back to their native places. Again, once the pictures are normal, now metro is coming, so a lot of work is going, a lot of construction is going, and that is needing more manpower, and that is pulling more crowd here. So I have to show those reports as opposed to my one word in a statement, that is unemployment or employment. If I am saying migration, then I have to give proofs for the migrations, different proofs for migration. So in this way, whatever statement you are making in your thesis, be responsible for that, and always have concrete statements. Do not ever go for anything that is very random or that is baseless. Otherwise, what would happen? Anybody can take an objection on you, and then you are then liable to answer them, and then you will fail to answer if your statements are not backed up with the concrete data. So you have to be very responsible, because thesis writing is a very responsible work, and that is done only by a mature crowd, not from some naive kid, right? So you are in a mature phase, so you have to abide by the rules, regulations, ethical practices. At the same time, responsibilities and benefits, those come along. uh, Responsibilities come along with the benefit of the thesis altogether. Then bibliography should contain plenty of references, all the sources which you have studied throughout your research. Though you have not written the things from certain reference, but you have read that while seeking information, while data collection, make sure you add on the reference of that also, because may possible that further research scholars, for their study, they may rely on your bibliography. Your bibliography is going to provide them certain kind of directions, certain kind of platforms from where they can do a data collection. So that is why you have to add on every possible reference in your bibliography. Then comes important step, that is well structured, coherent, and polished thesis. Your thesis should have a whole one piece with a logic. Okay, reassessing the logic of a thesis as a whole piece from beginning till the end. It should have a sequence which is logically arranged. It should be very coherent and cohesive. It should have proper arguments leading one into other, second into third, third into fourth. In this way, it should be chained in a very proper way. You should always give sufficient time for proofreading and checking. Understand, it's a very long journey, very important span of your life, the important chunk of your life you spend on this particular degree of thesis writing. So at the end, when it comes as an ultimate fruit, getting a fruit, a ripe fruit, then do not haste. Otherwise, you will face consequences. If you don't spend enough time on proofreading and checking, then your final submission will be faulty, and that's going to create a very wrong impression on the upcoming generations, upcoming scholars. At the same time, your when you finish your thesis writing and submit it in your department, your guide, and in your university PG section also, PhD section, the some copies of it are sent to external. So most probably two from out of state, two in state, and these people judge your write-up without knowing you, without discussing with you. They just judge it as a whole piece. And if your write-up does have a lot of mistakes, they will not permit you the declaration of your PhD. They may ask you to rewrite it, or they may cancel your degree also. So this step is very important. So proofreading is very important, because it is ultimate gain of your whole hard work that you have done in several few years. So that's why you have to make sure that you should proofread it properly. Get it proofread by yourself first, 2-3 times. Ask your friend, request your supervisor. Get it proofread from language expert and subject expert. So these are certain proofreading you must definitely do. There are some really good softwares like Grammarly. So you should put your thesis under the grammar check. Then advanced softwares are there. Turnitin is there, so in which you can check it out for the plagiarism. So if some content comes under plagiarism, then you can reframe those arguments or sentences, or you can go back to the citation of the data and use those references in your bibliography, so your write-up becomes error-free, plagiarism-free. These some efforts are must have, and you should spend enough sufficient amount of time, at least 2% of your whole journey of 5 years, like 1 or 2 months, you should spend in proper proofreading, checking, structuring, restructuring, drafting, and finalizing it. Your main argument should always support with the relevant citations, as I have already mentioned. Contribution of the most influential theories and researches are must to have in your thesis writing, because those are going to give you very concrete foundation to your work. Your work is going to be of some value, of some importance, if it has reference of all influential theories and works done in your field. So these are certain very important steps that every scholar must understand who is undergoing any kind of research. So this is a tentative, in general, common structure of any research work. So that is, first comes is your title page. This is a standard format of title page, which is common in most of the universities. Or your university may give you a sample of title page. Follow that, in on which the topic of your research, then your name, guide's name, department's name, the month and year of your submission, everything comes in on that page along with the logo of the university. Then comes very nice important page, that is acknowledgement. I understand that it's your hard work that is going to pay you ultimately, right? But there are some supportive elements in your life which always motivate you, contribute in the fulfillment of your this whole tiresome or Herculean work, like your supervisor who constantly guides you, or your teachers, or your friends, or your family members who always support you out. So this is a nice place where you should thank them for their existence, their support, and their contribution in your work. Very important point here is abstract. Abstract is a mirror of your whole work. So you have to craft your abstract very carefully. So usually abstract of any research writing flows from 150 to 300 words, but this thesis writing is a big piece in some 2 to 300 pages, right? In general, you have to check those norms in your university. So in general, the abstract flows into one page in several paragraphs. So make sure that your abstract should include main topic, aim of your research, which method are you using, summarizing all major results or findings, and your final conclusions. So the reader who wants to refer your thesis is going through abstract first, is going to understand what this is about, if it is helpful for that person or not, if your abstract is convincing, only then the reader is turn the page next. Understand that. Abstract is very brief document, so understand it should not be too much lengthy, but it should be proper, sufficient. Then comes table of content. Under table of content comes all chapters, headings, subheadings, along with the page numbers. If you are using any list of figures, any figures or tables or abbreviations, or even some technical terminologies, make sure to make a separate list of it and add under after the table of content, like under the list of table and figures, or list of abbreviations, or list of glossary. So in some of your cases, first one is not applicable if you are from humanities, but second and third one may possibly involve if it is too technical for him. For example, if some person is reading your thesis and you are using some short form like WHO, World Health Organization, that is very commonly known, right? But it may have some different long form also that you are referring in your thesis, and you have said it somewhere on page number 5, the full form, and you have said it in bracket, henceforth WHO. And later on, in all your pages, you are writing WHO, WHO. The next person who is reading page number 50 may not remember the full form. So the person has to go back and struggle finding where was the full form. So better the person will go on the glossary section or abbreviation section and find it out the full form and keep reading, continue. Introduction section is very important key aspect to begin your work. It has all important elements. Introduction is chapter 1 basically, which has topic, purpose of your write-up, aims and objectives, how your work is relevant. Thereafter, all necessary background information, theoretical background, problem statement, possible solutions, those you hypothesis. I mean, at the same time, tools and techniques those you are going to use, and how is the structure of your whole thesis. Everything includes in it. Literature review is very important point here, which is also known as theoretical background, in which you are going to refer various elements. And what is the importance of literature review here? To address the gaps in the literature. At the same time, to take a new theoretical methodology or approaches to the topic. It proposes a solution to an unresolved problem in somebody else's work. For example, somebody has conducted research, and while conducting research, the research problem at hand has been solved, but not at 100%. Or the person might have observed something parallel, but found that that's very important to be mentioned in the work. So in the last sections where we write further scope for the research, right? Scope for further research. The person has mentioned this issue, that this problem needs attention, or this problem needs investigation, or due to some financial issues or funds related issue or access related issue, this particular researcher could not finish this up or could not investigate much. So you can start working on it in your work and give some solution to the unresolved problem. Then comes advanced theoretical debate also. It also, literature review builds on and strengthens existing knowledge with the new data. That's why literature review is highly important. These are certain methodologies like qualitative, quantitative. I have already talked about experimental, where experiment involves you do it on the experiment basis. Ethnographical, for example, if you are studying certain tribe or certain unique trained, traditional trained, then it comes under ethnographic study. There are various methods of collecting data like interviews, surveys, archives, the details where, when, with whom the research took place. Then your methods of analysis of data like stylistic analysis, statistical analysis, discourse analysis, tools and materials you use like computer programs, lab equipments, or some CBQ, CBT based kind of test or tools you can use in your work that you can talk about under the section of methodologies. It's also a discussion of any obstacle you faced in conducting the research and how you overcome them. So what kind of methodologies you apply to overcome them. It was also an evaluation or justification of your various methods. This section is very important, results and findings, which talks about your overall argument of in-depth analysis of what your observations or data analysis has been talked about. Then comes discussion in certain cases, only in certain thesis works, where you talk about scope and limitation of your work. Then what were your observations? What are your arguments against those observations? And what are the explanations do you offer? If there are some unexpected results, then how you are dealing with those results? What are the alternative interpretations or alternative solutions possible? All these things come under discussion section. Conclusion is very important aspect, which gives a wholesome kind of feeling, emphasis to your main argument in your research. So it should concisely answer the main research question, leaving the reader with a clear understanding of your central argument, a final reflection on what you did and how you did, recommendations for further research or practices, how your findings contribute to knowledge in the field, why your research matters, why is it important, what have you added to what was already known. These are some important things. I already have talked about this referencing style, and appendices also I have talked about, in which you can add on the extra information like hard copies of your surveys, interviews, or soft copies, print out of Google Forms, photographs, or some graphs you have used or charts used. You can add on to all those things to your appendices. These are some mistakes every researcher must avoid. You should not miss any preliminary pages. All are important, like certificate, thereafter declaration, acknowledgement. These are important pages. Abstract of your thesis should not be longer than a page. Your thesis should not contain any kind of formatting errors. Your thesis should not have words in the proposal stage. For example, when we give a proposal for a research topic in our interview round before taking admission to PhD, we use future tense. I would like to. The researcher would like to investigate more. in this particular section, the research will lead to these conclusions, right? But when you are writing a thesis, you have completed your work. So your research work either has to go in simple present tense or in past tense. Understand that. You should always follow the academic integrity and you should not violate any of these. So all ethical practices should be observed. No grammatical errors, jargons, unclear paragraphs, organization, or any other common writing blunders should be there in your work. And then if you complete everything of these, then finally you will definitely be awarded with your degree. Nobody can stop you. Thank you so much, all of you. And here we go. Done from my side. I open the session for discussion now. If you have any queries, then please go